Hello everybody and welcome to Profit Mission Control. This is Matt Trader coming to you with a new video for a weekly recap for November 9th, 2018. So it's been a long time since I came with you with a video, and I do apologize. It's been a busy year, had a lot of things going on, but this week was worthy of a recap. And I wanted to spend some time to go over some of the stocks that we traded on the launch list, but also talk about one big mistake that I made that cost me, put a little bit of a dent in my portfolio. So before I get started, one key reminder I want to remind you guys about is Trade Ideas promotion. Today is the last day to sign for 25% off either the first monthly or annual, whether you get the standard or the premium subscription. You get 25% off the first purchase. So this is valid until tonight, November 11th at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. So why is this important? Well, first of all, this is the lowest price you're ever going to get Trade Ideas. Trade Ideas is a scanner that I use every single day to both prepare my launch list candidates as well as intraday alerts. So if you guys have been following me on StockTwits, all my intraday alerts like the Dodeca, Moonshot, Hypersonic Blast, Back to Earth, the Heat, which are really one of the best set of alerts that I have developed and back tested. These are all made out of Trade Ideas, and I back test them and understand their statistical power using the premium product of Trade Ideas, which gives me this opportunity to do the back testing. So it's been vital for my success as a trader. It helps me overnight to scan for specific stocks that I like to pick for my launch list. And without it, I'm really kind of blind, just walk myself blind in the stock market. So I highly recommend this product, and I've mentioned that multiple times. Now, if you get it today, you get 25% off. The other advantage that you don't want to miss is the fact that you can sign up as long as you are a subscriber to Trade Ideas before November 14th. You're going to be grandfathered in with this specific product called Brokerage Plus. And Brokerage Plus is a module that's currently in beta phase, and it's attached to Trade Ideas software that allows you to auto trade either off of the intraday alerts that comes through Trade Ideas or a specific strategy that you have developed. And as long as you have an Interactive Brokers account, it will allow you to automatically trade or trade with basically one click from Trade Ideas straight to your brokerage. It's a huge feature that is going to becoming off of beta November 14th. And when it does, you won't be able to access it without paying a separate subscription for it. In addition, there will be a waiting list to be actually getting that service. So the way Trade Ideas wants to introduce the full product of Brokerage Plus is to allow the first, I believe, 1,000 users, and then they want to test for a while to see kind of how automation is working and how is it really processing the or impacting some of the trades that Holly, for example, generates. And based on that, then they'll allow another batch of people to potentially sign up. So the point of this is that if you don't sign up before November 14th, you will not be able to get Brokerage Plus without being a member, without applying for a separate account or a separate subscription. So if you do it before tonight, you get that 25% off the subscription, as well as your grandfather in with the Brokerage Plus. So highly recommend you guys doing that. Don't let that opportunity pass you. If you have been thinking about Trade Ideas for a while, the worst thing you can do is at least get the monthly subscription, try it out, and then you can always upgrade to an annual. But make sure you have the product before you lose the opportunity to get Brokerage Plus with a standard as part of that product. So enough with that. I just wanted to kind of remind you guys about it and and encourage you to take opportunity before midnight tonight. So let's talk about the weekly recap and kind of a quick summary. This week has been relatively busy with 25 launches. I would say it hasn't been very effective because it felt like spinning my wheels. We ended up sort of almost with an equal 50-50 winners to losers. And actually the profit to loss ratio was not below 100%. So they kind of barely made it with a profit of $476. Now I'm going to go through pretty much all of these stickers, walk you through why I decided to choose these specific stocks for the launch list throughout the week, talk about how the trade went, and give you a little insights as to my decision-making process as I am selecting the stocks and as well as I am exiting the stocks. So before we do that, let's go talk about where the market is. So first thing is the SPY, and I'm not gonna bother you as much as you're probably hearing through. There's 20,000 videos on the internet that talk about what the SPY is doing and where it's headed, but overall it's good to take a look at the overall market to understand where things are. We continue to be in a downtrend since we reached an intraday high on September 19th. The month of October was pretty rough as we continued to decline. Huge 4 or 5 days of sell-off. Broke the 200-day moving average, which is never a good idea. And in fact, it broke every single other major moving average. So whether it's the 20, the 50, the 9, and the 5, which the ones I have here on my chart, all those have been broken. Now it found support somewhere around the 270 level and bounced off. And then we had a day where we had a gap up and go. So there was no we have one gap here, came back down, further selling off, and then finally bounced at the 260 level roughly, pulled back. This was October 30th, which was a very significant day in terms of buying. And then we had a gap up on November 1st, which was kind of saying, okay, bye-bye October. Now, this gap is kind of worsened because with a SPY, most gaps get filled. Sometime or an hour later, it will be filled. But once we've gapped up, there has been some buying pressure. We'd recovered a little bit some of the near-term moving averages, and we ended up kind of growing. And then we have another gap day. So there's 2 massive gaps right now. And where did the SPY stop? Somewhere around the 280 level, which is below both the 50 and the 100 days moving average. We did recover over the 200-day moving average, and then we tested again on Friday and bounced off of it. So for now, it seems like the 200-day moving average is holding. The SPY is in that kind of no man's land. It still has to make a decision what it wants to do. Typically anything below 280 tells us that the trend is still to the downside. Above 280, the trend is probably looking more encouraging to the upside, with the fact that we have these 2 gaps that needs to be filled. So one thing I want to point out to you is on my chart, I've been tracking this, ATR, average true range of whatever stock. In this case, the SPY index. So if you notice here, since October sell-off, we've obviously been increasing the volatility. So the range, when the range changes, that means the volatility is changing. So we've been increasing volatility, and we've passed over what I consider sort of a normal kind of limit, almost like an upper limit of where things becomes out of control. Like in statistical analysis and Six Sigma, which is, I'm a Six Sigma black belt. Anything that goes out of control, that means the process, something is wrong. So your normal behavior of the SPY has went out of control and it's still hovering above it. When did this last time happen? Well, it happened back in beginning of the year, around February timeframe, when we had the major sell-off there, and it hovered a little bit around that line, dipped below it, and then we had another sell-off in April where the ATR of the SPY, also volatility, went higher. And then you have to go back all the way to we've had a couple of sell-offs here in 2015, August 2015 and March 2016, but the really major sell-off where we had huge volatility was back in 2008 during the housing bubble. So now, as long as we are above this sort of upper limit, things are going to be very volatile. That means there's a big divergence between supply and demand. Any sell-off, they won't find a lot of buyers. Any spikes won't find a lot of sellers. So just be aware that the SPY is very volatile, and you can keep an eye on this ATR. If you dip below this upper limit and sort of start to normalize, things are going to become a little bit more normal, but we don't know what the SPY wants to do. So enough with that. On the IWM, which is tied more to our launch list process, we still experience a massive sell-off. Same thing with the ATR. We're above what I consider an upper limit there, so massive volatility. We did bounce off the 145 level roughly and kind of hovering in this range. So what happens next is really up to the market, and we'll continue to track how this behaves because the launch list process is very sensitive to the mid cap and small caps 2000 ETF. So with that, let's talk about the launch list. So what do we have? We had 25 stocks this week, and first one was MDRX. So let's go look at that. These are all the winners. We're going to go through the winners first and then talk about some of the losers. So MDRX is a stock that came on our nightly scanners, and you can tell when I put the stock on the list by the day before. It's based on information on the day before you see this profit window here. So so this one I put it on the list. That means on November 7th. That means the information came, based on how the stock was behaving on November 6th. So November 6th, MDRX had a bad earnings report, obviously, sold off significantly, opened with a gap down over here, dipped a little bit below, and then there's some kind of buying, and but it still ended up kind of towards the end of the day with some buyers stepping in. Next few days, seems like buyers were coming in to buy the stock, maybe overreaction to the news. Then I saw it on the 6th. It looks like it was going into a gap fill area. And the idea there is if it breaks this level, so sometimes you break into the gap, but you have to give it a little bit of conviction to, a little bit of room to prove itself that there are buyers actually coming in. So if it broke this level, where's the next potential profit target? Well, I think about multiple things when I talk about my profit target. Generally speaking, I'm looking for anything above 30 to 50 cents, right? That's my range. Anything between 30 to 50 cents to me looks attractive. That means I want to make sure that there's no resistance within that 30 to 50 cents. The second thing is the true range of the stock. Now, can the stock move in an intraday, 30 to 50 cents? So usually I judge that by its average true range and say, okay, if half of that range gives me around 30 cents, or if the momentum is strong, that means I can get, my 30 to 50 cents even within this entire ATR, then to me, it becomes an attractive stock. That's the first thing. The second thing is there enough above average volume? Are people buying the stock? And the last day, a few days after the earnings, yes, there has been above average volume. And then the second thing, third thing is going into a gap area, which means there's no potential sellers. Now, where is the potential supply area? Maybe all these wicks down here. That's probably where would be a logical place potentially to test. And to me, that's $11.08 from an entry above here at 1040. So that gives you plenty of potential room. So that's the idea, was if you break this level here, which was prior high of this day, is entering into this gap area. I need my 30 to 50 cents. I had my profit target about 50 cents from entry, and it worked out beautifully. So just kind of a thought about how I go through that decision process. Second one is SUM. So SUM, same story. Stock kind of bouncing off a low. It shows up on my my overnight scanner. Had significant buying 3 days in a row, above average volume, and the next pivot level here resistance is around $16 something there. So to me, when I saw this on November 2nd, it made sense to to put on a list for November 5th as a break of this level at 1533. In fact, it was like a 1535 entry. The goal there is to push to the next pivot level. Do I have 30 to 50 cents? Yeah, SUM was 50 to about 50 cents potential profit target. So it also has a huge ATR, so it varies throughout the day, somewhere between 80 to $1. And historically it was about 60 cents. So that thing can move during the day. It has a history of moving throughout the day. So the idea, you break about this level, then you have a potential of 30 to 50 cents. Yes, you do. That's where the next potential resistance is. And then your support area, or where I put the stop loss, is always somewhere between somewhere between where it's less than my profit target. So there's a good profit to risk ratio there. Above 1 would be good. And what happened the next day is they had earnings, so we didn't trigger above the entry price. Massive sell-off, and then a lot of people came in and bought the stock. So next day, which launched on the 7th, it broke above my entry level, gave me the 50 cents that I'm looking for, and then it sold off. So kind of lucked out there. It's probably taking a breather. The sell-off has happened on below average volume, but it also kind of violated some of its daily moving averages. So whether it bounces back is yet to be seen, but we got our profit on that one. Next one is DNOW. So there's an interesting story with DNW, because that one was from one of last week's launch lists. So the week of, which would have been November 2nd. And it first came on the launch list based on data on November 1st. So I put it on November 2nd's launch list. And obviously, there's a gap here to be filled. So the entry here initially was at 1456 with a profit target here at 1490, which is enough profit target for me. It fills this gap area, and where it finds potential resistance, that's my target. Now what happened on the 2nd was it gapped above. It opened and ran, and I couldn't get my price entry here at the 1455. So I missed that launch, and not only did it blow through the initial profit target, it gave a little bit more, 1527. So what I did on Friday, which I believe was November 2nd, was I put it again on the launch list for November 2nd. Why? Because it was exhibiting very strong behavior. We had obviously good earnings, crossed above the 200-day moving average. Looking at November 2nd, we had a crossover of the 5 EMA over the 9 EMA, which is always bullish, and on above average volume. To me, that says if I break this level here, the likelihood of a push higher, at least 30 to 50 cents, is strong. So that's why I re-put this on the launch list for November 5th, breaking this daily resistance here on November 2nd with a profit target of about 40 cents, 37 cents. That was a target there. Again, this thing has an ATR of 70 cents, so 35 to 40 cents is not out of the realm of possibility. Plus, it corresponds to the next pivot area right here, like this is where the next resistance level is. So it was a natural choice to add on the launch list. And then what happens the next day on the 5th, it does launch on the 5th, and just perfect execution, breaks the entry point. We push, get our profit, and it gets even more if you held on to it more. So after that, it found resistance at the 50-day, pulled down below it, still holding above the 200. So not sure what's going to happen to the stock. It filled some of these gaps here. Potentially, if you look at the daily downtrend, it's been downtrending, but kind of bouncing off. So that was kind of the idea for DNO. MPW is our next stock. So MPW, same story here. This was a play, came on the list for November 2nd. And it launched on November 5th. Now, why would it come on November 2nd? Well, when I scan on November 1st, what did the stock do? It had earnings the day of, obviously good earnings, punched higher with very strong volume. It's above all its daily moving averages. What's not to like? So it's a momentum breakout. So the idea there with a momentum breakout is you break that level of the prior day. And if you do, can I get 30 to 50 cents? And the answer is yes, because if you go back all the way back to where the resistance level would be, somewhere around, $16 or so. So it has room and has potential to go, especially with this momentum. So it's a natural choice. Idea to break 15.58 and push about, again, 32 cents, and it actually went up more. So this is the case of stock where the momentum is strong. I should have held on to it more, and look what it did. Like 3 days after that entry and exit, we could have gained another probably 70 cents or so. So that's okay. This is something I don't have 1,000 eyes to keep an eye for everything, but the idea there is to get my 30, 50 cents and bail out. And especially with this volatile market, still made a winner, and it was a very good winner. And you can see why it's a good potential, why I think when I put some of these stocks on the launch list. All right, next one is TGI. So that one was another winner. It came on the launch list right here on November 7th. So based on the action on November 6th. So when I do the nightly scan on November 6th, what do I see? I see a stock bouncing off a low with above average volume, and I always like to see a 5 to 9 crossover with above average volume. So I would say this is close to it. ATR, very huge ATR between 90 cents and $1.20, which means there's huge potential for at least 50 cents profit, right? So the idea there when I saw it on the 6th was to say, if I break this level, how far can it move? And looks like the next pivot area is somewhere above the top of this bar, and that's where I chose my kind of profit target. So it goes on the launch list, launches above 21.10 with a profit target to, let's see here, 21.55. So the idea was to enter at 21.07, exit at 21.55. And it actually launched on the 7th. So it launched here, got my profit, got out. Now a massive sell-off the next day because of earnings, which is something I need to keep my eyes and remember. And then a big bullish engulfing candle here. So this thing has potential to test at least its 200-day moving average. I think a break of 2020, maybe 2030, 2230 could push to 22.75, which is a good 40 cents profit. So you might want to keep that on your watch list. Next one is BAS. That's a kind of a lower cost stock, $8 kind of stock, and that was still a winner for us. It came up again on the nightly scan on November 2nd. It was the day after its earnings, popped higher, above average volume. Looked like there was some kind of gap area to fill here, potentially up to this resistance level, which is one level here, as well as was a resistance there, and then it was a support and broke support. So that probably is a natural resistance area right here around $9. So it came on the launch list for November 5th to trigger at 8.52 with a push to 8.80. It does have an ATR of 65 cents, so it could give me the 30 cents that I'm looking for. And it actually re-exited at $8.80. So one of the characteristics of the last few weeks is that I've been trying to get profit early, so take my profit and go, just because the market is very volatile. Now, if I have 30 cents, I'm out. Even though the stock, I have more potential to push higher, I just don't want to risk it. So other thing to take note of is that it's still in a downward trend, and we haven't had really a massive crossover of like the 5 to 9 or anything like that. So the downtrend momentum is still there, and oil prices are going down, so energy related stocks are probably going to continue to be in sell-off until oil starts to recover again. So that was BAS. Next one, AAOI. That one was kind of a crazy mover. So AAOI has very large ATR. I mean, it ranges about $2 a day. In some cases back here, it was like $2.85. It has a tendency to move a lot, but it has been in a downtrend since probably this earnings report wasn't very good, and it sold off, and then it came up on the launch list for November 9th for Friday, basically, based after earnings on the 7th and on the 8th. So the earnings day was on the 7th. On the 8th, there was massive buying, pushed it above 5 and 9 EMAs and even the 20 EMA. So it has a history of moving a lot, and that's why I had actually a massive stop loss on that one, almost $1. If I remember, this one had a stop loss of about 75 cents to 80 cents. I can't remember, but anyway, the point there was to enter above this pivot level here. Now, it's not necessarily the high of the day before, and it makes it clear if I go to a 5-minute chart, which sometimes I use to pick up my entry points. So had a massive day here, where would be a natural level to enter would be around this area. So if all the buyers pushed it all the way to here, the chances of it actually breaking that level and then pushing higher is high. So that's why I chose this pivot level. Give me a little bit more sense entry early, gives me less risk and potential profit. So that's kind of the plan. And if you traded that one on that day, you know that how volatile it was on Friday. As soon as we entered, it pushed higher to the profit target level and even beyond. And because I knew it moves higher, it moves a lot, I held on to this one in particular. Just gave it like a 10 cent, I think, above my initial profit target, and we realized that, and after that it pulled back all the way to just a little bit above its opening price. So what it does next is I don't know. It has been selling off a lot. I'm assuming this stock has a lot of short percentage as well, so the momentum shifting higher there's a good case for that, I guess. SDNR is next on the list. Sorry, SNDR. So SNDR came on the launch list for November 6th based on the price action on the 5th. So what happened on the 5th? Well, we had earnings, a couple of days of kind of almost like a little flat handle here. We had a crossover 5 to 9 with above average volume, and it showed up on my scanners. So the question is, where will be a natural entry? The natural entry will be above the high of this day with a push potentially to test this resistance level that was got established for 2 days in a row, and it was a resistance level over there. Does it give me my 30 or 50 cents? Yes, it does. Is the ATR high? Yes, it's 80 cents. So why not put it on the launch list? So the idea there was to break 2267 level with a profit target of 33 cents. So which puts us around this area here of resistance. And not only did we get that, it actually pushed higher, but I got out early, got my profit, and closed the deal there. So whether it has more room to go, I don't know. It's still in major downtrend. Needs to push a little bit higher, maybe recover the 50-day before it's a long-term potential swing trade. PPC is next on our list as a winner. So let me see, was this a winner or? Yeah, it was. The last one was actually a profit. Not. So PPC is interesting because this one, again, I think this was I traded it twice. I won on the first time, and then I lost on the second time. So First, the win, which occurred here on November. Well, it came on the launch list for November 2nd based on price action November 1st. Again, we have earnings day, huge response to earnings, big buying, bullish engulfing candle, cleared all this noise here, and then it was starting to pivot around this resistance level at 1909 or so. So the entry there would have been 1907. That's kind of the entry point, and it has room at least to the resistance of this candle back here, all the way back on September 13th. So that's why it made it to the launch list. Huge volume, good ATR, above its daily moving averages. So the idea there was to break here, give me that 30 cents or so, and that ended up being a winner. And then a few days later, so might as well talk about it now, November 7th, again, it looked like the momentum was still going there, and look where it was. It's hovering around this pivot, which is a prior resistance level right here, this level of 1960 or so. So the idea where there was to put on the launch list for November 7th. If it broke this 1960, it has potential to give us at least, to $20, which would be somewhere over here, the next pivot level over here. So that was the idea. Again, it had strong momentum, but that didn't work out. As soon as it broke that level, what happened? The sellers came in and knocked it down, which made it a winner. Sorry, a loser on the second attempt for November 7th. So that was both a winner and a loser. I think net I was a loser because I took only small profit here and then took my full loss on it on the 7th. So it happens. Now let's go to the losers. First loser we had was RLJ. So RLJ, if you look at the daily trend, it's downwards. It showed some sign of bounce here. Came on our launch list for the 9th based on price action here on the 8th. It seemed like after earnings, people were buying that stock. It had room. Again, the idea there was to break the high of this day with a push potential to this level here of resistance. I would say this was probably, in hindsight, probably a bad decision, just because there was some, one pivot level around this area, but hopefully, the hope was that this might push to the 50-day, maybe closer to 50-day. It didn't happen, so it did break that level, but then sold off, so we ended up exiting at our stop loss. Next one is TISI. So TISI came on the launch list for November 7th based on the price action here on the 6th. Huge bullish engulfing candle, very high ATR. This thing moves. It was right after earnings, so the earnings was good. It was testing its 50-day moving average, so everything looks good. So what was the thought there? The thought was to cross the 50-day moving average with some conviction. So the entry there, the plan for the entry there was at 21.55 with a push to 22.20, which would be the next kind of resistance area here at this candle. So if it broke this 22.55, which is the high, which was kind of this resistance level here, and conviction above the 50-day moving average, that was the plan, then we would get a good solid win. Now that didn't happen. So as soon as it touched 21.55, entered the stock, but then it sold off very quickly and hit our exit price at 20.95, so we got out. Overall, I would say the stock is actually looking pretty good because we had a huge buy, also volume day here with a huge above average volume with a nice green candle. So I would say any break above the 50-day moving average and holding it potentially could give us some push here to the 22, 23 area even. So keep it on your watch list if you're interested. PPC, that was another loser for us this week. No, sorry, where am I at? I am at Well, we talked about PPC, the losing, so let's move to the next one. VSH. All right, VSH came on the launch list on November 5th based on the price action November 2nd. So as Friday ended up, the idea was to break this level. Again, the stock seems to have good earnings, or found buyers after the earnings. We had a 5 to 9 crossover and above average volume. Looks like buyers were stepping in. You know, we had a very strong day here on Friday, so it looked good for Monday. If you break this level, where would it go next? Somewhere around this pivot level here at $20. So the idea there was to, if we broke the 1955, 1960 area, maybe it would push to 1985, would give us 30 cents. And with a stop loss, obviously about 30 cents, about this pivot level here, slightly above it. It didn't work out. It did touch that price. We entered. Let's see, when did this actually launch? This launched on the 5th. So, but we sold off right away at that date, so that didn't work out very well for us. Although the stock kind of looks interesting, especially if it breaks its 50-day moving average. ATTU. Same kind of behavior there. This is kind of frustrating because ATTU, I think, was initially a launch candidate from last week. Yeah, based on, so November 1st data or price action made it attractive for me to put it on the November 2nd launch list with a break of 2028. That was the initial potential entry there. Now we missed that, so I never got filled that day on Friday. So I revised the entry on Friday. Sorry, so the next, so this actually launched, I'm trying to remember this one, on the 6th, on the 5th. So the following, so on Friday I put it on the launch list to break above this pivot on Friday, which was the high on Friday on the 2nd, with a push of about 30 cents. And what happened there is the new entry here, profit target there, lost there. So it did launch. I entered the stock hoping that it would push to the 2182, which is a prior pivot level here, or resistance level there. Instead of pushing higher, it actually sold off and I had to go out at 2083. Now, if you held on to it the next day, what did it do the next day? Well, it broke through that level and sure enough gave us that profit target and moved to 2 or 3 days even more, good potential all the way 2371. But it didn't happen the day we entered it, so it became a loser on our launch list. This stock looks very, very bullish. I mean, it's above all its intraday or daily moving averages. Had a very strong 5 to 9 crossover. There is a little bit of a gap here potentially to fill, but I mean, you have to go back all the way to, let's see, what's the last resistance level? I mean, pretty significant, ways back, not before 2000 bubble probably, where this was at this level. So it's a very strong stock breaking out here. Potentially will pull back, maybe to form a handle and then continue. So this should be long-term stock on your launch list or watch list. TLRD is the next loser. This one, this one was frustrating because I lost twice on this stock. So I lost on both on the first time we tried this on the 6th and then also another relaunch on the 8th. So this came on the launch list for the 6th based on the price action on the 5th. The 5th obviously looked very bullish, very strong volume. We had a crossover here, proved that it held both the 50 and the 100-day moving average. So what's not to like there? Put on the launch list to break this level here at 2331, which is this resistance level. And then you have this gap here to fill. So there's a lot of supply here, but if it broke this resistance, that means there's potential buyers coming in. So that was the idea of the trade, is to get here above the 23, let's see, 2332, with a push. You know, it has an ATR of 99 cents, so getting a 50 cents or even 40 cents is not that difficult. And the next resistance level, it's up to me to choose where it is. So I was targeting for this stock about 38 cents, and unfortunately it did make a move and almost hit the profit target. I didn't get out, sold out, shook me out, and I had to get out. So lost on that trade. Now I said, well, I'm going to put this again on my watch list because it still looks strong. We had these huge bottoming tails, so buyers are still stepping in. It's just very volatile. That's the problem. So I put it on the launch list for the 8th. Again, same price. To break this price, push higher. What it did, it broke that price, kept chopping, almost touched the abort price, held it on to Friday, and then what does it do Friday? It sells off and comes out and pushes me out again with a slightly above average volume. So it's testing, it's sort of putting I would say a handle. I think any break above the 2371 will probably give it a push, maybe to test here the 2415. So this could become a launch list for next week, but then volume is still slightly starting to shrink. So I'm not sure if I want to keep an eye on it. But I think if you put your price alerts somewhere around 20, maybe even here above 24, 26 level, this thing can potentially test its 200-day moving average, especially that we're entering into shopping season, and some of the retailers might show some relative strength the next couple of weeks. Next loser was PTEN. Again, kind of a disappointment on that one. It had all the elements of potentially a good profit. Again, this came on the launch list for the 6th based on price action on the 5th. The idea there was to break this resistance level here, try to fill some of this gap, and it would be the natural profit area where it would be the resistance area. But again, oil and gas has been selling off, so it did break that entry price target at the launch price at 1727. The idea was hopefully to get to 1760. Didn't work out, only made it halfway through there and then sold off and shook me out. So luckily it was okay, because then we had sell off the next few days. I think most of the energy stocks, maybe a good idea to stay away from it at this point. But it was coming off of obviously good earnings, good ATR, crossover here, sort of a bouncing, and you have at least some range to the $18 area maybe for profit target, but that didn't work out. AVX is the next loser. AVX came on our launch list again based on price action on the 2nd. So this was on Monday, Friday the 2nd, the 5th. The idea was to break this pivot level, break 1701. So could have said the idea there is 1695, but one thing to keep in mind, when I'm very close to a whole number, I usually wouldn't put a stock on a launch list if I'm right below the whole number. What I tend to do is wait for it to break the whole number with some conviction, so 3 to 7 cents above the whole number, but then that's eating away from the daily range. So I'm usually more skeptical about these launches working, but sometimes they present a potential good opportunity. So on the 2nd, the idea there was I got to break the 17 level and with some conviction. So my entry price target was at 1705. So 1705 means it broke the whole dollar and has buyers stepping in. Now the problem is this is only about a 60 to 65 cent ATR. In fact, it usually historical range is about 50 cents. So that means it could give me maybe 25 to 30 cents, but that's if I'm breaking really at the opening of the day. And since I'm waiting till the 1705, it did break above the 1705, got me in on the, when did this launch? Just launched on the 6th. So, right here, entered, poked a little bit above that entry point, but then sellers came, pushed it back all the way down. So that didn't work out. I ended up exiting the stock. with a loss on the 6 as well, so which would be right here. Yeah, so it broke down below that level, so it didn't work out. The next couple of days, it actually made the move I was looking for. You know, again, so it's a good setup. It's just the timing was bad in this case. It did break above the 1705, pushed it all the way to test the 200-day moving average, which was kind of my profit target initially. I think if it breaks the 200-day and the 50, then, you know, maybe it's a sign that this thing is reversing and going up. It seems like it had kind of a indecisive earnings day here, where you had buyers and sellers at the same time. So not sure what this stock wants to do. ELF was the next loser. All right, ELF, what is this doing? Oh, this was a moonshot alert. So if you look here on November 6th, this thing came on my moonshot alert. It triggered at, I believe, 13. I have to go back and look at it. I believe it's 1327. I can't remember. I have to go back and look at it. But anyway, it was a moonshot alert. Moonshot alert gives us a potential profit target of $1 to $1.25 when they trigger intraday. They also had the huge stop loss of about $1. So when I see a moonshot alert, just because it's a highly accurate alert, more than 70% accurate, I tend to take them. Even though there's $1 stop loss, but the probability of me becoming a winner is high. So I did take it as a moonshot alert, and I think it hit. It gave me the $1 that I was looking for, maybe 70 cents. I can't remember. I think. Yeah, it triggered at 12:27ish. I have to go back. Sorry guys, I'm thinking about this. But anyway. The reason why I put it on the launch list for the 7th was because it was a moonshot alert, and it hadn't fully completed its $1 move. I think that's why. So the entry there was above 1332, which seemed like a resistance of the prior day, and I knew it had room to, I believe, 1427. I gave it a target of 1410. Now look what it did. It actually got very, very close. I think it touched the 14, and I should have taken profit, but I didn't, because I strongly believe in my moonshot alert and said this thing could squeeze at least to 1410, if not above. So I think the trigger was 1327 for the moonshot alert, and I did get in at 1327, and hoping to get to 1427 as an intraday alert for the next day. Now, this didn't work out for the launch list, as it pulled down the next couple days and exited my profit or my stop loss at 1265. However, from a moonshot alert perspective, the stop loss on this thing is at 1320, so it's at 1227. So theoretically, the moonshot alert is still in effect till 1227 area, which is kind of around this 50-day moving average. So I would keep an eye on this stock, because this stock will potentially push above $14 just based on the price action and the statistical strength of that alert. Now, it had buyers. Every time it pulled back, buyers came in. This had very good earnings as far as I can tell, because of the fact it gapped up so much. Plus, it has a huge short percentage. I think it just needs to cool off on the RSI, maybe come down to 50 without violating that 1227. I think any buy at the 1227, 1230 potentially might look good. Obviously you're gonna have a stop loss at the natural next step. I mean, if you enter the 1227, you gotta make sure you have some reasonable stop loss. Don't just hold on to it too long. But I think 1180 is probably a good stop loss at that, which is about 30-40 cents from entry, maybe 50 cents. But again, the potential to pass beyond 14, 22, 23 is still very strong, in my opinion. long story, this was a loser on the launch list, and it still is working out as a moonshot alert, if that makes any sense to you. Okay, next one, HZNP. Look at this stock, how frustrating it is. So this one was a candidate for November 2nd, and based on the price action November 1st. Strong buyers coming in. This had been recently, I have a recent downtrend, bounced off the 200-day moving average, came on our scanners. We had a crossover here, above average volume. So to me, automatically, I'm gonna take it above the high of that day, as long as it's not close to a whole number. So this was in the 1960s area. So the entry entry there was at 1965 with a, it has an ATR of $1, so it could give me a nice 30 to 50 cents. The natural area there would be around this support area, which was a prior support that got broken. So $20 was the target. Actually 2 cents below, I had at 1998, just because it's a whole number, so it might face resistance. So what did it do? Well, it didn't launch on the 2nd, but I believe it did launch on the 5th. So right here, November 5th, it broke right above the entry price, launch price. Got in, bam, sold out, got out. So it was an immediate loser on the 5th, but then buyers came in. Second day, same thing. Buyers came in, and then look, it had earnings on the 7th. Bam, cleared all this area and went even higher. So this is definitely a very, very strong stock. It had a little gap, so we might want to fill that gap, but look at this breakout and a pull down, like a nice little handle here. Probably dip below the 2020, 2050 is potentially an area where it might decide to bounce and continue higher. Very strong stock overall. TLRD, that's the second, so I'm not going to talk about that one again. That was my last, the one I lost twice on. And then the big elephant in the room is CBB. CBB was a big loser, and this is the second time I do it this year. I can't remember the first stock, but probably in around July or September timeframe, there was a stock where I held over earnings and ended up tanking on me. I believe it's VNet, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Should remember my losers pretty well, but or V-Ray, maybe V-Ray. Oh, no, not that one. But anyway, this is, I guess, fool me once, it's on you. Fool me twice, it's on me. So this was on me for sure. That's the night that I didn't actually publish a launch list because I had some other commitments that night, and I held it in flight. So the story of the stock wasn't too bad. It came on the launch list here on November 5th based on price action on the 2nd. It had just broken its 200-day moving average, curling up. That's a good sign. It wasn't on above average volume, so that could have been a warning sign. But again, the idea there was if I broke this pivot a little bit above it, then this thing is still confirming that it wants to go higher with a potential profit target here, right at this prior support area, which now is a resistance. So it wasn't too bad of a decision. The only problem is that earnings was 3 days later. Now, what I typically do if I see a stock that has earnings 3 days later, it doesn't prevent me from putting it on the launch list, but I shouldn't be holding it in flight, and I typically don't. But in this case, I got blindsided, held it in flight. It triggered, it launched above our 1485, 1486 level. The profit target there was 1520. It came close to it, 1510, 1515. Should have got out when I could have, but I didn't. Held it overnight, and bam, opened with a huge gap, and I had to take my profit. I lost there at $13.90. So that was a big loser. It's my second biggest loser for the year. It put a big dent in the weekly profits, and I still ended up green for the week, but this this is one of the lessons that I've learned. So what I'm actively doing now is any stock in flight, I'll have to check to make sure it doesn't have earnings the next day, just to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So that's kind of wrap up for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed this conclusion sort of discussion. I know I tend to take long talking about these things. We're getting close to an hour here, but I wanted to always share this information with you. I think it's very good. It's good for me to go over some of these. It's also good for you to kind of learn how I decide my stocks that I pick on my launch list, as well as how I kind of trade them. With automation right now, my Command Center automated tool, if you've been following me, you know that that's been developed and it's in kind of beta testing. I have it on Interactive Brokers. My plan for 2019 tentatively right now is to fund that with about 50 to 75K and let it auto trade, and I will probably restart another challenge on SureTrader for $5,000. And the reason I want to do that is, let me go here a couple of slides. So if you look at my equity curve for this challenge since the beginning of December of last year, you know, with 2,500, taking it to 5,000 took about a big chunk of the year. I didn't hit the 5,000 level until probably mid-April. So I don't want that to happen again. I think it was a little bit of a struggle to start with 2,500. It's not that you can't do it. It's gonna take a lot of discipline, a lot of patience. I think for you guys, if you really want to start trading, anything below 5,000 is just, you know, you're gonna waste all your time. You might as well have just saved that money rather than trying to trade it and, you know, risk losing it all. So might as well just save up to 5,000. So that's my plan, is to start in January with a $5,000 account. Maybe start earlier, maybe late December, early December. I don't know yet, depending on how the market behaves. But once I hit the 5,000 back here in April, you can see that it didn't take a whole lot to double that and, you know, push higher. So this is kind of why I want to kind of start at the $5,000 level for next year, and then at the same time use the auto trading for the Interactive Brokers account. Now, there has been rumblings, a couple of things. First of all, Trade Ideas is looking at other partners that have the DAS platform to potentially use Brokerage Plus on, which will allow you to auto trade again with Trade Ideas using other brokers other than Interactive Brokers. Now, this has just been kind of discussions when I went to the TI Summit back in October. But I know that at least one partner with a DAS platform is going to enable that next year, which tells me that means there is an API that might be available. If there's an API that's available, it could work on the DAS trader for SureTrader, potentially, you know, other brokerage systems that use the DAS trader. Now, why am I saying that? For me, if I can get automation on SureTrader, it will make my life a whole lot easier, and it will allow me to focus better on more kind of intraday sort of recaps, let the emotions out 100% this time, and just navigate the trades versus having to manage them actively, and, you know, the entry and exit, having to do that sort of manually or semi-automatically. I'll dedicate a whole video about the Command Center if you are interested. I hope you guys have been following me on StockTrades, know where this is behaving, how it's behaving. It's pretty awesome, actually. Made my life a whole lot easier. So with that, I would like to wrap up this video. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the weekend, and don't forget, once more, this is your chance to get Trade Ideas. Code HollyDrive gives you 25% off. You can use this link straight. It will take you to the products page where you're gonna find how to enter this code. It ends today, 11:59. Take care, guys. Talk to you later.